Hi, this is Paula Kowalczik, President of Brokerage over at Charlesgate in Boston. We have the fabulous privilege today of talking to Rich Bowden from the Southwest Florida market down in the Naples, Marco Island area. Rich and I have worked together a couple of years. It's been a few months since we've been working together, but we worked together for a couple of years. Why don't you tell them a little bit about you, and then we'll tell them a little bit about how we met.
Absolutely. So yeah, I've worked for a couple of years down at Premier Sotheby's. As you can tell, I'm not originally from Florida, but I've been here 25 years. Back when I lived in the UK, I was an agent and a broker when I was quite young. I started in business when I was about 19. Always had a sales background. Always enjoyed selling, something that I really like doing. And a couple of years ago, decided to go back into real estate, met Paula, and the rest is history.
Yeah, so we met at a boot camp, didn't we? Put you through a
We
boot
did.
camp before I'd even hire you.
That's right. And, that was the first part of me remembering the sales skills to be consistent and keep on following up. And after about 6 or 7 weeks, I joined the company, and it was great working with you, Paula.
Yeah, well, we did. We had a lot of fun. So I'll share with everybody Rich's unbelievable production, because he did over 25 million his first year, full year in the business on the team, and is pushing up over 30 plus million, heading to about 55 million, we said, for this year.
Yeah, I think 55 is doable this year.
There's a lot of our listeners out there that are going to say, in this market? So I know you have an unbelievable mindset, but you also have a very good grasp on the market and what's going out there, and are able to really help sellers identify the advantages to the market. Tell me why you think this is a good market and a good time for buyers and sellers that are looking to transact in real estate.
Well, there's always a base level of household formation. So there's always buyers in a market, because there's always people being born, getting married, graduating, getting new jobs, having more kids. So there's always reasons why people have to buy. The only really bad markets are out there, and we've seen them before. I mean, I've seen them a couple of times, when liquidity disappears. When you can't borrow money, then that market gets tough, although we can still do deals in that. But this market is actually pretty good, because down here in Florida, at least, we have increasing supply. So the way that I see the market at the moment with my buyers is I can say two things to them. I can say, I'm going to show you a lot of lovely properties, and we will find at least one or two that you really like. So we can spend your money. But then at the end of it, I'm going to knock the price down, because there's so much supply out there. So I'm going to save you money. And it's pretty much the two things that we love in American consumers is we love to spend our money and we love to save our money. Now, here's the thing. When interest rates come down, and one day they will, I think when they move down about 100 basis points, maybe even less, there is tremendous pent-up demand out there. And we are going to have such a wild, wonderful market. You're really going to enjoy it, because we've got all this overhead supply, which we've got to chomp through. But when those buyers start coming back, we're not going to see prices move up that fast, but we're going to have a great selection. And as transaction brokers, we're interested in transactions. It's nice to see the prices going up, but if they're going down or they're staying still, what we're interested in is doing transactions. And I think, in front of us from here, we have the ingredients coming for a really...
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And that's kind of what a lot of folks are saying out there right now, right? It's that pent up demand. But, so from that point, if you get those buyers out there now, they don't have to compete, right? This is a good time to get them out there in that inventory, so they don't have to compete against all those buyers, except for when those interest rates drop.
Absolutely. And sometimes, you hear people, when you're dealing with buyers, but buyers tend to put up barriers with you. And these are barriers they've got in their heads, or barriers they've read in the media. And they're often pretty illogical. And, they say things like, well, I'm looking at houses, but I'm nervous about the market. And I'd like to think, you see prices going back up. And it's like, you want to pay more? I mean, why would you do that? This is actually a really good time for buyers. And if you can get that across to them and get it across, they can actually save money, and they don't need to worry too much about, if the property goes down another couple of percent, doesn't really matter, because, real estate is a long-term proposition. In 3, 4, 5 years, they will be in a very good position.
Right. The long game, right? So I say to everybody, play the long game out there.
Absolutely.
We all know it's coming. We all know those prices are coming back out, right? So one of the things I want to talk to you about today, Rich, was, your initial start in the Southwest Florida market. I know this has shifted for you, and we'll talk about that as you've built up, but you did do a lot of online lead conversion where you were given those opportunities of leads online or people that you didn't know. And, I loved watching you convert those at a very high percentage very quickly. What do you think were some of the things that led to your high success on those?
Well, I think that the most important thing in that initial phone call that you're having, or even if it's just a text, whatever it is, that initial contact you're having with the online person is they're self-selecting. They're saying, look, I'm interested in the property. I want to go see something. Take them to go and see it. Always give them that freebie, because the qualification, and you do really need to qualify buyers. Once you meet them, that's where the hard work starts, because you've got to qualify them. You've got to make sure there's a sense of urgency. Do they have the money? When do they want to move? Are they looking for the right type of thing? But get them to that first showing. Now, sometimes you're going to go to a showing and it's not going to be worth it. They're going to turn out not to be who they say they are, or whatever, not have the money or whatever. You're still getting out there. You're still seeing your real estate market. So it's always good value. It's always good value to be out there. Now, if you've got them on the phone initially, add value to them. If they're talking about this property, then say, well, that's in a flood zone, or it's not in a flood zone. Explain to them that you know about the market, so they see that you have the knowledge, and then tell them, yeah, we're going to see this tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Get them to that showing.
Yeah. So again, I do have a recollection of you sort of being willing to run with anybody, whether it was a $55,000 lot or whether it was a multi-million-dollar property.
I think you've got
you
to.
never said no.
I absolutely think you've got to, because you've got to have consistency in your business. In season, I'm aiming to do 10, 12 deals a month. Out of season, I'm aiming to do five deals a month. I want a deal a week. Now, I really don't look and think, oh, this is 100K. I'm not earning enough out of this. Don't think that way. What I think about is all the time, where is the next deal? Where is the next transaction? Doesn't matter to me how many deals I've done this year. What matters to me is doing that next transaction. And that's the great thing about sales, because you don't have to worry too much about yesterday. If yesterday didn't work out for you, the deal didn't happen, everything went wrong. The great thing about sales is you've got redemption, because today you can go and chase that new transaction. There's more people out there that want to buy, and you can focus on them. It's the great thing about this job.
I know you probably remember me always saying it's a numbers game, Rich. It's a numbers game, right?
Absolutely.
Just keep working those people, and the right people will step forward.
The big numbers will come with your experience in the market. I mean, I was fortunate. I'd worked other markets, other businesses, and in real estate back in London. So I have grounding in how real estate works. And I was a property developer, so I really do know about buying properties and at the right price. But there's no substitute for just getting out there and being out there in the wild constantly, looking at the property so that you understand what your market is doing and the dynamics of what is going on. Before you turn up to any showing, you should know the comparables in your head, even if you're learning about them 10 minutes before, so that you can walk into that property and you know the value, so you can talk to your client knowledgeably, and they'll want to stick with you for that.
So lots of prep. And I remember you doing a lot of prep work before you went out, even to the opportunities that you did have. Leverage every opportunity.
That's a really interesting thing, because when I learned this business back in the UK, obviously works a little bit differently in the UK. And this was back in the 80s when I first started in it. And back then, as an agent, you paid a salary and they gave you a car. So if you didn't start bringing deals in pretty quickly, you got fired. That was it. Okay. And the thing they taught you to do very quickly was qualify your client. Get to know them. Make sure they've got the money. Make sure they've got a sense of urgency. When do they move? Are they putting up barriers? Can we remove those barriers? Now, these days, there's you should be doing that when you first meet them. And you should always be closing them as you're talking to them. You're gaining information from them. You're understanding, are there barriers here? Aren't there barriers here? How urgent are these people? What do they want? Can I find what they want? Are they unicorn hunters? Are they looking for something that doesn't exist? But the wonderful thing today is, because of the internet, we can look at people, and you should be looking them on forewarn anyway, and you can see, have they bought properties before? So are they, financially sophisticated? You can look them up on social media, look them up on LinkedIn. You can see, do these people Do I think these people have money? What is the lifestyle they'll be looking for? Do they have kids? Do they have grandkids? You can understand so much about your client, and that will help you when you're talking to them, because a lot of the time you can be asking questions you probably already know the answer to. But
Mm-hmm.
it helps you get to know the client, it helps them get to know you, and you will find, and if you qualify them, you will then be able to judge exactly how much time and how much focus you will want to put into them to get them to do the deal. It identifies the low-hanging fruit really well.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the easy deals that you should be doing, and you hit them every week. And then some of the other things you learn are, these people are probably going to take 6 to 9 months, and they're going to go in my second bucket, and I'm going to keep in touch with them, and I'm going to keep talking to them, but I've qualified them, and I know that I can't spend as much time with them as I must spend with these people. I think that's key to the business, and it's something, like I say, I learned 35 years ago because we were forced to. And I think maybe these days a lot of agents probably don't think about it so much, but that's really what you want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
then you'll have a consistent business, and you will consistently do deals because you will identify the people who are ready to buy.
Yeah, now you've not only identified them and closed them, but you're doing an amazing job of actually then turning those into referrals and working your sphere and your network and stuff. Talk a little bit about that in terms of how you built off of, leveraging those online leads, but now how do you build that sustainable business going forward?
Well, when I'm negotiating for people, and again, I think this is an important thing that we ought to concentrate on, is to some extent, you have to have your client under control. You have to formulate the strategy when you're going to buy a property, and you have to explain to them how it works. And again, you do this on the showings. Way before I ever get to write a contract for a client, I have explained to them the different contracts, the different legalities in them, why we're going to do an as-is contract in this market because it's the best thing for buyers. And I'm showing them, I'm preparing them for that day when I close them and say, you're going to sign now. And so they understand, and they've gone through the process so many times with me just talking about it, they feel very comfortable with it. So I formulate a strategy with them. And one of the things that I tell my buyers is, and this works very well in this market, is that value of a property is about the condition of the property, that the condition of the property informs us what that property is worth. However, the price we're going to pay, that is about condition of the seller, because
Mm,
the motivations of the seller, financial distress, moved away, illness, got married. I mean, there can be
mm-hmm.
good reasons that they're motivated. And then you look at the days on the market. They've been on the market 180 days. And then there are signals the seller can be sending you. Like if they're chopping that price every 2 weeks by 5K, that is someone saying, buy me, but it's also saying, try me. If you want to hit them with a low price, those people, they're signaling that that's what they want to happen. They'll entertain it. So I formulate a strategy with all of my buyers, and I explain this strategy to them. And people like that. People like understanding how I'm going to do the business for them, how I'm trying to save them money and do them a good deal. And I think that it builds your reputation. And certainly the other clients that come to me know that I got a lot of energy. I'll show them lots of houses if they want to see lots of houses. And then at the end of it, we will build a strategy and they will do well out of it.
I love that. And I think people need to, that's like sort of a big aha to this, that there's the price of the house for the condition, and then there's the condition of the seller, right? And
It's
where
all
we can
about the
actually go. And I love breaking that
condition of
down that way.
that's what we buy. We buy the
Yeah,
condition of the seller.
that's
Now,
incredible.
sometimes the condition of the seller can work against you. If they got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
money. I had one recently that won the lottery and they had a horrible
Mm,
house. We couldn't buy it for the right price.
mm-hmm.
But again, just like I investigate my buyers as I'm dealing with them before I meet them so that I understand them, I investigate the sellers. And so I understand what their motivation is. And it's important to remember that the seller's agent should be your best friend. The seller's agent, heavy lifting for you. They want to get this thing sold. And so you can help them bring everybody to the same place.
Yeah, so many people look at that seller's agent as competition, or I'm
Oh,
like, they're your friend. If you don't get in an alliance with them and have good conversations with them,
absolutely.
they can basically help you ink that deal, right? They can help you finish that deal.
This is a collaborative business.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the buyers like to think that I'm going in there saying, no, all we'll offer you is 650. That's it. We're walking away. I would never do that. I never issue an ultimatum ever, because once you've done it, where'd you go? It's all about getting everybody to the table, resetting expectations, and then getting compromise so that everybody feels they won something. Everyone feels they did okay. That's all that everybody wants to feel. And the seller's agent can really help you do that. And also, most sellers agents, if they've had a property on for 6 months, they don't want to do another open house. They're done. They just want to get this thing sold. You can utilize that. And definitely the best deals I do are where I can build a good relationship with that seller's agent. Not always possible. Sometimes, sometimes they're back a lot. The majority of the ones, and the good ones, I love it when I meet another good agent. I love it when I can deal with someone, I can relate to them, and they understand how to do the business. That can work very well in your strategy.
Good communication, right? Not all these agents are communicating really well with the other parties that are coming to the table either.
Yeah, I think so. I think that some people really do see the industry as combative, and that you have to fight for the client. You do have to fight, but not in the way that people think. You just need to devise the best strategy to achieve the outcome that you want. And it's the same when you're a listing agent. You've got
Yep.
to have a strategy in place to achieve the best situation you can for your seller.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of agents burn bridges with other agents and then ultimately burn their own business because you never know when you're going to do another transaction with that agent, and it might be multiple offers on the table, right? You need to get more information out of that agent, and if the agent knows you're going to get them to the closing table, they're going to be willing to give you that information to help you get there,
Yeah, and
right?
the way I deal with that, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes you get a passive aggressive email from the other agent, and the first thing is like you want to shout back. Okay, no need to shout back. They're just like, okay, this person's not having a good day, and I just move on and ask the question or whatever I want to achieve. Because it's all about what you want to achieve. It's all about the transactions. All about the end goal. It really, personalities don't matter. And so I try always to get past that. And I would never get to a point where I was having an argument with another realtor. It's pointless. And, by the end of a transaction, even if tempers have got a bit heavy with the sellers or the buyers or whatever, you make sure that, congratulate the other agent and, end with a joke, try and make everybody happy. That's the important, because you're quite right. You never know when you'll need them again.
Yeah, you never know. You can't burn those bridges. So I have a
Absolutely.
loaded question. I have a loaded question for you. How important is it to work for a good manager slash coach?
I think that it is very important to have a good manager, to have a good mentor, someone to keep you honest, someone to remind you. I'm very goal oriented. Always have been. I wake up in the morning and I think, what do I want to achieve today? I've done that since I was a kid, because I always want to achieve things. But it is very good to have a good manager in place, someone you can turn to with those questions, someone you can bounce ideas off. I mean, you can do it with other agents, in your team, company, or whatever. But there's nothing that can really replace that good relationship you have with a good manager.
Well, I always had a lot of fun working with you, Rich, and I do miss you. I wish you'd come up to Massachusetts and sell some real estate up here in Boston. We'd take you in a heartbeat. But doors always open up here in Boston for you. But so one other piece, I do remember from our conversations, you have a pretty solid morning routine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, want to
Yeah.
share that with everyone? Because I know you are very disciplined with your morning routine.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to build a process. I mean, like, if you answer the phone enough, you'll do a few deals, and you see agents do that. They do 4 or 5 deals and it's great. They make some money and then it stops. And the reason it stops is because they haven't got the same repetitive process that builds the pipeline and builds consistency. Pretty much, like I say, when I wake up in the morning, what I think about is, what do I want to achieve today? In my head, I have a league table of my best leads. And they can move up and down depending on what they say or how they behave, or how I feel things are going with them. But I got them in my head and I carry them around all the time. When I wake up in the morning, I think, you know what? How do I get that person to close? Can I do it today? If I can't, how do I incrementally push them along just a little bit? Got to do that with them. What ideas do I have? And I think about my best leads that way. I think about my paperwork of the deals I've got to do. I've got to get this piece of paper off this other agent, or we've got to agree that addendum. How do I get them to agree an extension on this closing? What do I need to say? How can I prepare for that? I also think about the other aspects of my life. I've got the grocery store, I've got all the other things I got to get done. But I want to know that by the end of that day, I have attempted those things and I've achieved some of them. Now, you might not achieve all of them, but every day you should be looking to incrementally achieve these things. Then when I get up, do some exercise or whatever, then I sit down on my computer. And that first hour of a day, I'm looking through my leads and I'm making contact with some of them. I'm looking if anyone that I haven't spoken to for a time is now looking at stuff, if they're doing something interesting. I need to make contact with people, certainly the best people. As I say, I tend to have 4 buckets of different leads, from very good to the no hopers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stay in contact with just about everybody to a different degree. So that's the first hour, 90 minutes of the day. Then I'm doing my paperwork. Then I want to be out. I don't want to sit in the office. Paula, I can't sit in an office. I hate going to meetings. I wanted to be out there in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
So in the afternoon, I'm setting up appointments. I'm getting to my listing appointments. I'm getting to the sales appointments. But then I'm coming back and in a perfect day, between about 4 o'clock and 5:30, I'm going back to my new leads that have turned up, or to the leads that I've spoken to in the morning and that I'm trying to push into seeing more properties or perhaps doing a deal. I'm going back to them and I'm repeating the process. Okay. And in season, the day doesn't really finish till 8 or 9 o'clock because we're so busy. And, but in this part of the world, you want to be doing a few showings around sunset because we sell houses.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
That's what people want. But that is the typical day. And the great thing about sales is it's organized chaos. So not every day can run on those lines. Yeah. That's what I love about it. You never know who's coming around the corner. You don't know who you're going to see tomorrow or this afternoon.
Yeah.
But if you stick to that kind of process, you will build yourself a pipeline and you will have these leads in your head who that you push along to get to do deals. And that will keep you consistent and it will bring you consistent success.
Yeah, and that practice kept your business coming in very consistently, whether it was season or not season. From, I watched you in action and you didn't have that roller coaster ride that most agents go through where they're busy, 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 showing a bunch of property, but they're not following up with the prospects. And so then, then it actually...
Here's what you can do. If you've put these different things, different leads into different buckets, and you're getting to a stage where, for whatever reason, things have slowed down a bit on you, or a couple of deals have gone wrong, and you're thinking, oh boy, look, I'm down to 2 deals now. What's going on? You can dig harder into these buckets, and you can say, okay, fine, I don't have as many in bucket number 1. I'm going to have to push harder, and I'm going to find people, because you've run a system and you've kept in contact with people, and so you can delve deeper and you can keep the business going. Once you have the confidence that you can go out there and do the deal and extract the money and find the right people and convince them, having the system in place will absolutely help you keep your business on the same level.
Yeah, consistency is key, right?
Absolutely.
And follow up. I mean, sometimes it takes a lot of conversations to get these people to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, following up and sending them messages, sending them new properties, even if you think they're not going to be interested in this property, but I'm going to send it to them because I want to start the conversation again. I want to keep the conversation going. One of the things I learned from you, Paula, pretty much on the first day was it's all about conversations. You always got to keep that conversation going. And to a point, I think that one of the things we should remember as agents is that yes, and saying yes, keeps conversations going. As soon as you say no, that's it. Conversation's over. You will miss, what is it? You will, I've always missed 100% of the shots I didn't take.
There you go. Yeah.
Keep on saying yes.
Got to take the shot, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Even if the offer they want to make isn't that great, or what they want to find is hard. So yeah, I think we can do that. Let's go and have a look. Let's get out there, because you'll be surprised at the compromises that people are prepared to make. Just because you said yes, and you can get them a little bit along the way.
Yeah, and you were never afraid to pick up, I'm sure you're still this way, never afraid to pick up the phone. You didn't rely on text messaging and emailing. You were sort of first to phone, from what I remember, and that's how you get a lot of these people on the calendar.
Well, yeah, because, you don't know who's going to be at the end of the line. You're going to have a conversation with these people. Obviously in sales, you do have to have a little bit of a thick skin because some people are idiots and they give you a hard time. But, when I was at college, I was an English major, and my girlfriend at the time was a psychology major. And on the first week in psychology, they make you go and stand on the corner of downtown London, which is a pretty rough place. And they say, you've got to smile at 100 people walking past you and write down what they do. 10% of them, they're pretty horrible. They say something rude to you, whatever. 30% ignore you. About 50% smile back at you and say something nice, they're interested. And 10% probably ask you for a drink and won't leave you alone. And if you think about it, before you pick up that phone, 60% of the people are going to give you a good experience and going to be worth talking to. Yeah. 30% are probably be not so, and you can try and talk them around. And only 10% are going to be experience. Now, the leads we've got, those calls are self-selecting. So the odds are probably a lot better than that. There's no need to be scared of picking up the phone to people. They're self-selecting. They want to talk about real estate. Everybody wants to talk about real estate. Just have the conversation.
And they're nice people on the other end of the phone. I think we're always assuming they're going to hang up, and it's like
Exactly.
one in,
These people are the teachers that teach your kids. They're your doctor, the people that work in Starbucks. They're all people you know.
Right,
You'll be fine.
right. It's a good way to think about that too, and remember that, right? Yeah. So one thing I'm pretty certain I can ask you this question and not get burned on is, you don't do a lot of negotiating on your rates, do you? I'm not going to talk about percentages here because we're not allowed to do that, but
Okay.
you don't cut your rates, do you?
I don't, and it irritates me with listing agents who do. When listing agents find that they've chopped the buyer's agent down to 2%. When I go to a listing, I tell my sellers, look, you're going to have to pay 3%. Why are you putting barriers in your way? You're in a pretty tough market for sellers. We want to sell your home, make it worth the buyer's agent's while. But also, these people who are chopping to 2%, 1.5%. I mean, I saw a bank that wasn't offering anything at all. And the message that seller is sending to the buyer is, I'm going to be hard work. You don't want to negotiate with me because I'm already causing problems. Plenty of properties in the market, they don't have to buy yours. So certainly when I'm at listing, I insist on my sellers with me paying the buyer's agent appropriately. And you know what? When I write an offer, I'm going to write in 3% there, even if they're telling me it's 2.5%, because I'm bringing the sale. You've got to, in this market, if you consistently bring in sales and you're working hard, you're worth that 3%. I'm not meant to mention numbers, Emma.
What? Yeah, we didn't talk about percentages. They can
All right.
blink.
Okay.
So
Very good.
as well, we got a lot of agents that don't know how to. You talked a lot about showing your value to the client right up front too, in terms of even establishing that relationship. So then, why undercut yourself and start offering discounted amounts? Because that's not really what this is about, right? This is about what that seller nets in their pocket and about this deal coming together.
Absolutely. You should always be closing. I know that's a movie phrase that some people don't like, but when you're first dealing with your client, you're trying to find out the information from them that will help you eventually close them on the deal, and you're trying to find out their motivations, their urgency, and things like that. But you're also closing them on who you are. Whatever experience you have and whatever you are good at, you've got to close them on that. I close them on the fact that I've been in real estate 35 years, and I will get them a good deal because I know how to knock prices down. Similarly, when I'm talking to listings, I will close on the fact that I've been in 35 years and I know how buyers agents work, and I will stop that happening to them. I will look after them. You've always got to be, every conversation you have with your clients needs to be of value, needs to be incrementally moving them along towards the transaction so that they understand who you are and that you are worth what they're going to eventually pay you.
I love that. What's the best memory you have of a transaction or a client over this last year and a half? Like your best,
I got so many.
I know you got a lot of good deals.
Recently, I had two buyers who separately hugged me because they were so pleased, and that was a good. I really did actually feel very good about that. But I've had lots of deals that I've been very pleased with because I'm prepared to do. I mean, I've got deals I've done 100K, all the way up to about 6 million. And my niche market these days is between 1 and 2 million, where I like being. But I actually really get enjoyment because I was a property developer for a long time, and I used to do deals. I used to knock properties down. When I've got a young couple, or I've got a young investor, somebody who's trying to make their way in real estate, and I do them a good deal, I know I've done a good deal for them. That makes me feel really good about it because I know that if they carry on playing the game right, in 3, 4, 5 years, they'll be in a very good position, and I'll have helped them along. And it's because of my experience 20 years ago when I was a property developer that I can do that. And I really like paying it forward like that. It's a good feeling.
Oh, and then they're going to come back when they're ready for that next deal, right? That's what makes them come back because they know you had their back.
That's the way this works.
They know that you helped them in that process, right? That's the beauty of this business, actually. Serve them well and they will come back,
That does
especially in
happen.
this market.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's your biggest pet peeve about other agents?
Well, one of the ones when I see buyers agents at a property and the buyer is clearly very interested and turns around and says, well, I think I want to make an offer. And the buyer's agent goes, okay, I'll go back and I'll run the comps and I'll send them to you. We're real estate professionals. You know, when you turn up to that property, you should know what it's worth. You should have the comparables in your head. And if you get to the property and there's problems like the floor hasn't been done or there's a problem with it, whatever, do the math in front of the client. Say, look, this should be worth 400, but we got to put in a new floor here. I mean, that's going to take us another 20, 30K off. Not really knowing what they're doing. Not a big fan of part-time agents either. I think it's a full-time gig. And to be honest with you, I'm always a realtor. When I meet people, when I go out for dinner, I don't
Mm-hmm.
bore them with what I do, but there's no way I'm going to leave people that I've met without them knowing who I am, who I work for, and how good I am at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will discover where they live, how long they've lived there, if they enjoy living there, and I will know if they're going to move or if they've got friends that are going to move.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, not boring people about it. I don't know how you can. People love talking about real estate. Sports and real estate is probably the two biggest topic discussions in America. So there's lots of ways that you can introduce it to the conversation. But I guess, yeah, those are my two pet peeves. Part-time people that just uninformed, don't have the information to hand. They should have.
Yeah, well, it's obvious from talking to you why you're so successful in this, right? You serve your clients at a very, very high level and you come in prepared. You do the work. You have the discipline to set your schedule up right and keep that pipeline going. How deep is your pipeline these days?
I'm always running at about 10 live deals. I've always got about 10 live deals. It got to the point in season when I had 20. And that was interesting because what you have to remember when you have that many deals running, most clients, and particularly because of the way I run my business, because I handhold my clients on the way to when I look after them. Once you have those 20 deals running, a lot of them are going to want to call you every other day. And so you're fielding a lot of calls and you have to put an hour in your day somewhere to dealing with all those calls because most of them are relatively, questions, silly questions about, where do I get the keys? And it's like, well, you don't close for 6 weeks, so we'll talk about it a little bit later. But you've got to be prepared to deal with that. You've got to be prepared to keep on holding their hands and after the deal. Now I'm back out of season. I'm running 9 or 10 deals all the time and I'm always replenishing them. And that's fairly easy to run.
What about from the prospect pool? What does that look like?
From the
I know you
prospect,
said you use 4 buckets, right? You use 4 buckets. So those top couple buckets, what do they run?
okay, so let's talk about the buckets. Okay, so
Okay.
the first bucket we got, those are the people that they're going to write a deal in the next 4 weeks, or they should be. They're making the right signals that that's what they want to do. That's where your initial deals are going to come from. Then you've got a bucket of people that are probably going to act in the next 3-6 months. They're actively looking, but they're putting up a few barriers saying, oh, we can't move down yet, or we got to do this, we got to do that. Now, that may not always be true, but that's what they're doing. And so you put them into the second bucket. Third bucket, those people that are saying, oh, it's probably a year out, we're just looking, we're interested, but we don't know. You want to spend time with them, you want to be sending them stuff, but you can't spend too much. Fourth bucket is your unicorn hunters, people that, 500K live on the beach and have,
Mm-hmm.
never going to happen. Or they're the people that really can't afford it, or those people that are always thinking there's a housing crash around the corner. And so, I
Mm-hmm.
want it for 100, but it's 500. Those people go into the fourth bucket. You can stay in contact with them, but don't waste too much time because they're energy vampires and they'll take your empathy away. Got to concentrate on these other 3 buckets. In terms of buyers, yeah, I've got a lot. I've always got about 10 in that first bucket, 10 to 12. Yeah. And 10 is about, of good buyers, that's a good number to handle. Once you start to get towards 15 and 20, like you do in season, it gets
Mm-hmm.
harder and harder to focus on them. Plenty more in the other buckets. And like I say, it's a league table that I run in my head, and people can go up and down the league table depending on what they signal to me and what we're seeing and how they're feeling. And they can move from bucket to bucket. Sometimes people go into other buckets. Now, you will do deals, and I've done deals with people in all buckets. Even I
Uh-huh.
think unicorn hunters I've mentioned to grab
Yeah.
some people out of there that have managed to move up. But that's how you've got to look at it. And you have to remember, it's your business. You're the person that makes the decisions, and you have to make decisions and be happy with those consequences. Again, I tend to see some agents who who will, even if they've got a person in the third bucket, if that person wants to see 10 properties, they'll take them to see them. Okay, once maybe, but you can't focus too much on them. You have to focus your time and concentrate on the people that are going to do business, because you know they're going to do business.
Yeah.
This is your business. It's, you might, whatever brokerage you work for, you're working with those people. It's not their business, it's yours. You make the decisions and you decide what to do with your time, because your time is your commodity.
Yeah, we all have the same amount of time in the day, right? You don't have any extra hours from anybody else,
Absolutely.
right? You've got the same amount of time. So have you ever fired a client?
I'm a really nice person, and
We
I
know
think I
you
can
are, Rich.
talk
That's
about
why we
how
have
good
you
you are.
here.
Have I ever fired a client?
Hmm.
I don't think I have. I've come close once or twice where
Hmm.
I felt that people weren't valuing me and were trying to knock me on price and things like that. It's like, okay, because some listings and some buyers as well seem to think that they're paying the commission just to advertise the property or just for me to open the door for them. That commission they're paying is for 35 years of real estate experience and for me making sure they get a good deal and they get looked after. That's what they're paying for. And I think, I'm thinking about it now, I may have had one client who I came very close to. But generally I won't. I will find a way to work with people. I think you can work with most. And it's
Yeah,
about,
I only fired once in my career that I can remember. I was standing on a corner in Washington, D.C. at my cousin's graduation, and the guy was driving me so crazy, running with him like crazy, like you said, right? You put him in the A bucket because you think they're ready to go. And he was nasty. He was just so rude that I finally said to him on the phone, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm like, I'm done working with you. I'm canceling our buyer agreement. Like, I'm done. I'm moving on. He was so mad at me. I'm like, I don't let anybody talk to me this way. Why would I let you talk to me this way? I mean, he was just rude. So, it is our business and it is our time. So we do have to be selective with what we do with it. So,
absolutely, you have to make the decision and stand behind the decisions. And like I say, I sometimes see agents who are very scared to make a decision. And because
mm,
they think they're going to get it wrong. They think they're going to end up going with the wrong person, that other person they told who had to wait, or they say, like, I can't do it today. Or they push to the back of the line a little bit. They think that person's going to end up being a buyer, and oh dear, they lost the money. And it's like, okay, you lost the money. Great thing is, today's another day. It's a gift. We always get a chance to redeem ourselves and do the next deal. Focus on the next deal.
anything you'd share with people, especially newer agents, because you do come from a lot of experience, but you were new in that Southwest Florida market. So you kind of had to come in like a new agent. I put you through boot camp. I made it hard for you. I didn't make it easy for you to get in there, did I? I
I
actually,
thought that was a test. I thought I had to
yeah,
prove to you that I wasn't
you,
going to give up.
You did, Rich. You did. And you did a good job of proving me because I wasn't convinced until you actually were really relentless about following up with me. And you did. And you showed up to that boot camp and you participated 150%. You were all in. You were making the phone calls. You were doing everything we were asking you to do. So I knew we were off to a good start there. But, you know, and I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you a question. Now I lost my train of thought.
Well, I
Oh,
think we're just talking about new agents.
yeah. What advice would you give somebody new in the business that, is coming into what is classified as a tougher market, but there's a lot of noise out there, right? There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of noise. You know, how would you tell that agent to approach things and actually jump in the way you did?
I think I personally believe, and I know that's some coaches disagree with this, but I personally believe you will learn the most if you get out in the wild. If you get out there, you meet people, you show them houses, you learn to think on your feet, you will learn far more. And remember, it's meant to be fun. Yeah, we're looking at nice houses. You're meeting new people. It's meant to be a good time. Don't overstress it. Don't make it more than it is. Go and enjoy it. Make sure you're having fun. Make sure the client is having fun, and they will come back to you. And the more you repeat the process, you will find that you learn fast. Yeah, you will learn, if you enjoy this, you will learn how to close. You will know how to close. You will see the signs, and the signs repeat with people. And the more you do it, the more you will learn and have the self-confidence to go out there and do the deals and know that you can find that client and you can do the deal. And once you have that self-confidence, there's no stopping you. You know you can do it, even in a tough market. That's my best advice.
I love getting out in the market. Get out. I love that you called it the wild because it is kind of the wild. It's like the Wild West, but you got to
Absolutely.
be out. If you're not out in homes and you're sitting, you said it earlier too. You do your work at the desk and then you get out in the field. Like, not sitting behind a desk and a computer all day waiting for something to drop in your lap.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to get out there. You need to talk to people. One other tip, and I sometimes meet other agents and they're down in the dumps. They're looking at me and they say, oh, I say, how's business? They say, oh, it's been tough. I'm down 20%. I don't care if you're down 20%. Never tell people that, ever. Yeah. When you're out there, you need to be positive. I mean, you should be positive because you never know when the next deal is coming. You're hunting for that next deal. Yeah. And that's why you're out there. Go out and have fun.
Wild and a hunting. I think we got a theme going on here. I'm picturing you
Okay.
like safari. I'm picturing you like in safari gear, Rich, heading out in your Jeep, showing those properties on the beach, right? I do. I mean, you have unbelievable skill set, but also a very, very strong work ethic, which I think, someone once said to me, and I've always remembered this, and I think of people, grit will outperform talent every day.
Mhm.
You have grit and talent, so that's a winning combination. That's a winning combination.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Paula. But I enjoy this. I enjoy selling. My first sales job, as I said, was selling a sort of ShamWow product. I've always enjoyed it. The feeling of closing a deal when someone, puts their signature on a contract and you've agreed the price, that's a really good feeling. Once you've done it, just move on to the next one. Constantly looking for that next one because that consistency, it will not only bring you a good salary, but it's a great feeling when you're confident enough to go out into the market, like I say, and always do that deal.
So I love what we've talked about here today because we haven't talked about, so many people are out there talking about the magic pills, the magic software, the programs, the AI, it's all about, I think you and I come from the same place. It's all about the relationship. It's all about the people. It's all about the conversations,
Yes.
right? And coming from value. You can have all the tools in the world, but if you can't have a good conversation with someone and, meet them where they're at, understand what their needs really are so that you can better fulfill them for them. If you've asked good questions, you'll have good answers for them,
Yeah,
right?
and I think that's true of sales, selling anything. You are, whenever you're selling anything, you are saying to that person, I am going to incrementally improve your life. I'm trying to sell you something for lifestyle. It doesn't matter whether you're selling houses, you're selling cars, you're selling a nice set, whatever it is, you're saying to them, this is going to improve things for you. Now, I certainly think that's true of houses, and I think it's probably true to some extent all around the country. It's very easy for me here to say, oh, I'm selling lifestyle because we've got sunshine, we've got palm trees, we've got boats, and golf. So yeah, I'm absolutely selling lifestyle. But, industrial town in the Midwest, you're still selling lifestyle. People want a nice home. They want to be close to their kids' school. They want to be close to the restaurants or the sports grounds or whatever it is. They don't just want 2-bedroom box in their price range. So you've got to understand people, you've got to qualify them, you've got to understand them. And as you qualify them and you filter down into a subset of what they actually want, what they need, and what will work for them, that is what this job is.
Love that. And I got to tell you, from the bottom of my heart, I love watching you soar. I love watching you kill it because I know the conversation we had on the front end and how you wanted to do it. And I'll be honest, I was a little apprehensive when you said you came from owning a brokerage because sometimes the folks that can manage and lead can't always get out there and sell, right? They can to a point, but they don't always get the success boots on the ground.
Yeah,
Any,
well, I love the selling. I don't really have any wish to go back to managing people.
yeah, I get that. I get that. But I love where I'm at right now. And
Okay,
I do what I do because I love watching folks like
but
you
you're doing it really
soar.
well. You're really good at it. That's the thing,
No, I
and
appreciate
you can
that.
cope with all these different personalities. So I don't want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of different personalities. That's a good way to put it.
Mhm.
Any last words for everybody in terms of achieving the level of success that you've achieved? Any words of wisdom that you'd want to share with everyone?
Just remember that today is a gift, and every day you get up, think about what you want to achieve, think about how you're going to achieve it, visualize it, and just try to achieve it. And if you don't, tomorrow should be another gift. Try again.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rich. I'm so glad you were
Okay.
able to join us. It's been such an honor and a pleasure, and I know they got a ton of great stuff out of today. It's relationships, have discipline in your mornings, right? Be organized down that pipeline, and really come from value. They might be agents, and I know you heard it a lot when I was down there. Come from value. If we can't come from value, then why are we there? Why are
Absolutely.
we there? Do your homework, do the prep work, go in ready to really help that client get to the closing table.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Continued success.
Thank you, Paula.